All right, welcome into the Brant Parsons Show. So let's talk about the Florida-Utah game last night. So what's interesting about this game is if I'm a Florida fan, I still have some high hopes because I think a lot of their young defensive players, kind of a lot like I talked about, have a really bright future. I mean, you saw Devin Moore have a nice pass breakup. Miguel Mitchell played pretty well. You saw Florida, be honest, their defensive line played pretty well in this game. Their defense overall played really well. I mean, you saw it's cool to see guys like Chris McClellan out there, Cam Jackson. Utah had to hold several times. Florida, you could honestly argue their defensive line had a slight edge over the Utah offensive line. So bright spots for the Florida Gators defense. But credit to the Utah offense. Both their quarterbacks that rotated in with Cameron Rising, they played really well. The one guy made a really good throw to start the game, 70 yards. Credit that guy, former rugby player. That's why you like college football. You like a story like that. Sounds like a hardworking guy, rugby player, got his opportunity unexpectedly, went out, 70-yard touchdown, first play. You saw the other quarterback, number 13, making some plays too. Saw Utah just execute. Utah really looked like, Kyle Whittingham and Utah really look like the team that they are year in, year out. And I mean this in a good way. They look like that rock solid. We're going to be well coached. We're not going to make mistakes. We're going to play good, solid, clean football for 4 quarters. And that's exactly what Utah did last night. So credit Utah. I was wrong. I picked Florida straight up. I was wrong. Utah, credit them, Kyle Whittingham. And Utah, maybe as a team, I should start thinking twice about betting against. But I guess no one really cares about that. So let's get back to the game a little bit. So Florida made too many mistakes. The penalty on the 2-yard line hurt them. The penalty on the punt hurt them when they had them stopped in the first half. That led to a Utah touchdown. So mistakes like that, really add up, and they are really deflating to the defense. But I credit the Florida defense, with all the mistakes that were made. The Florida defense really just was played hard, and they looked like they were in shape. So young guys, a lot of guys, Herb Street referenced Jason Marshall at corner was the only returning starter from last year's Florida team that played against Utah. So Florida, I think a lot of these guys are going to grow up as the season goes on. I think I'm not going to write off Florida. I think they're going to grow up. They're going to get better. Graham Mertz has to play better at quarterback. I guess he didn't play terrible in this game, but he's going to have to make some more throws. He can't just check it down continually. You see when he does get in a rhythm, they can move the ball fairly effectively. So Graham Mertz got to play better in this game. The defense, I think, will grow up, continue to get better. They got to limit some penalties. So I think there's a lot to, even though Florida has a lot to clean up, I think the future still is pretty bright, not only this season, but moving forward for Billy Napier and this Florida team. But Utah, it's a lot of kind of the same old in a good way. I don't mean that in a bad way. Utah, it's a lot of, well coached, executing, good solid team. I think when Cameron Rising comes back, I think that should give them a boost. I think with Cameron Rising out, I got a little bit more confident with Cameron Rising out, but I think they have a chance to be a really good team this year, and Utah is certainly going to be in the mix to repeat or three-peat as Pac-12 champions. So Utah, a lot of good things in this game. Their defensive line played pretty well. I think a lot of that was Mertz was holding the ball too well, but defensive line did a really good job. And then Utah, they physical, tough running, high execution, and then Whittingham is Utah really have established himself as just a rock solid program. But for Florida, it's not all doom and gloom. I think that they will rebound from this. Like I said, they're just going to have to grow up a little bit defensively. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but just continue to get better and better. But Utah, credit them, big win. Covered, they were 6-point favorites when it was all right before kickoff. Utah, credit them, they covered. So nice win for Utah. They get the final score 24-11 in favor of the Utah Utes, and Utah trending and working towards another Pac-12 championship season. And then the Florida Gators start 0-1 and Billy Napier in Florida going to look to improve as they inch closer to SEC play. So, but other than that, I think that it was, it's fun to see two good programs go at it, especially at Utah, a fun environment. So I thought it was a, fun game. And even though I lost some money, I think we learned a lot. I think we learned a little bit about both teams as far as where they're at this point in the season. So thanks for tuning in this clip of Brant Partial Show. Make sure to stay tuned for more episodes and clips from the show.